Today I'm going to be taking off a water pump on a 7.3. I think this is like a 95 or a 96. It's before the intercooler. So the water pump, take the fan, just if I can get to it. Yeah, that water pump shot. Very, very shot. I've already got the coolant draining, and it's really the first thing you want to do. And then you just keep going. I messed up and took the bolts out first. Just kind of getting ahead of myself. But the first thing you want to do is take off the fan clutch. This is the fan clutch toolkit we have. You're supposed to set it up like this. I got the tool on the fan clutch and that going up to the air hammer. I don't think this is going to work very well because of the position, but we're going to find out. I think it actually worked. And then all you do is spin the fan clutch. I'm kind of surprised it worked, but you know, first time for everything. Fan clutch is off, shroud is unbolted, but that is in the way. There shouldn't be any bolts on the bottom. It usually just sits in a couple places on the bottom of the radiator. Other than that, it should come up pretty easy. But I'm gonna take this off. Once you get that hose off, you should be able to just pull it out in one piece, which you can't do with one hand. And just like that, it all comes out. And then we have full access to everything else we need to get. Once you get everything out the way, we can get to the water pump, but we need to take the belts off first, which means we're gonna go to the tensioner, loosen it, take the belt off, and just put it to the side. So this tensioner doesn't actually have a place for a tool, for a tensioner tool. So this is a 15mm bolt, and all you're gonna do is pull up on it, releases the tension, you can pull the belt off. You wanna make sure you inspect the belt, because places like this probably is a good belt. It was, but it tore from, I'm assuming, when the water pump was moving. You're usually looking for cracks or breaks or anything in the belt. After that, you want to remove the lower radiator hose. I took a hook and went in the top of it and around it to break it loose. Because you can also do it with a good pair of channel locks, but usually with these older hoses, they start to rip the hose, and I don't really want to deal with that. So now, when we get to the water pump, we need to take this hose off, this connector, and this radiator hose can come out with it, and then I think all the rest of the bolts. You also have to take the water pump pulley off out of the way. You can see how bad that is to get to a couple bolts. And if you're confused on any of the bolt locations, you can look at your new water pump. They'll be in the same spot. Easiest way to do it is just get your pry bar, hip up against one of the bolts, and if you do this on the new one, try not to mess up the threads. You can usually get a smaller one and go between bolts, and that works better, just so you can keep those threads intact. But on the old one, it doesn't really matter. I like to go through all the bolts and break them loose with a 12.5-inch ratchet, because then go back with an electric ratchet and it can buzz them all out real easy. It shouldn't fall. The water pump shouldn't fall. You should have to pry it off, but if it does fall, you know, start with the bottom ones and then go up to the top. Make it easy on yourself. Once you make sure you have all the bolts out, this one has 9, then you should just be able to pull it off or find a good place to pry it, but make sure not to break anything. Make sure to have a pan under it, because there will still be antifreeze in the block, so it will dump out. But now you're done that, pull this whole little thing out. Well, I said that. And you have a water pump. So I brought it over here to the vise while the coolant drains out of the truck. There's a few things you're going to need. You're going to need this, which is your heater hose, part of your heater hose. You need this, which I believe is your temperature sensor. Don't quote me on that. You're going to need your thermostat housing. When you take this off, you're going to want to look at it, make sure it's reusable. I'll show you what I mean by that. And usually you want this neck, but the water pump that we got, it comes pretty much with this setup on it, so don't even have to worry about that. You're going to need the clamp for the hose, obviously. This piece has an O-ring on it. This one's pretty bad, but you're going to want to clean it up and replace the O-ring. This piece does not, but you usually want to use some kind of Teflon tape or something like that. And with thermostat housing, this one's fairly new, but around this edge on a lot of the original ones, they'll be rusted and corroded to where it just will leak out. They'll have flat O-rings, and then water will seep out and it'll just tear it away. So Usually you want to get a new thermostat housing, but they're pretty good. This one's pretty good. With a new water pump, you don't want to damage the sealing surface. This is aluminum. It will scrape easily. This does have an O-ring style gasket, so it's not as bad as like a Felpro or something, but this is where your thermostat goes. I just find it easier to put these pieces back on out of the truck. You're more than welcome to do it in it. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but I like doing it this way. You always want to lube your O-ring just to make sure it doesn't rip or tear when going in. And this doesn't need to be tightened down so much. These are aluminum threads. I'm pretty sure this is steel, so you know, it's a very delicate procedure. Slight change. That was the wrong water pump. That was for 94. This is for 96. So this is the right one. I did have to add this. Everything else is still exactly the same, so just continue as is. The only difference in the two was this pipe was too big to fit in the threads of the other one. So that's why I had to get 96. I've got the water pump back in, just clean the surface, put the gasket in. I still got to put the temperature sensor in. I've got the radiator out because I had to do the front seal as well, but that's done. This is actually the next day, but I'm gonna put the water pump pulley on, and I'm gonna do it an easy way. These only torque to 18 foot-pounds, so I have my little snap-on impact, and I just... And I'm going to check the torque too, and I'll show you how to torque them if you don't do that. This has a little plastic protector for the threads for the fan clutch, so you can pretty much do the same thing as taking it off. I already checked them, they are torqued. That's just the way I like to do it because it's a lot easier with that than having to hold it and torque it and everything else like that, but it is always better to torque it. Since I have the radiator out, I'm not going to do it this way, but to put the fan clutch back in, you just take the fan clutch and the shroud in one piece, slide it back in exactly how you took it out, bolt up the fan clutch by just spinning it on.